0 to 1 by Peter Thiel is the definitive guide to building revolutionary companies that create entirely new markets rather than competing in existing ones, revealing the contrarian thinking and monopolistic strategies that separate world-changing startups from incremental improvements. Peter Thiel opens by establishing the fundamental distinction between horizontal progress, which he defines as copying things that work, and going from one-to-one, and vertical progress, which involves creating something entirely new and going from 0 to 1. The author argues that true innovation and extraordinary business success come from vertical progress, where entrepreneurs create new technologies, business models, or approaches that did not previously exist. Thiel emphasizes that the most successful companies in history have been those that created new categories rather than competing in existing markets. And this principle applies whether you are starting a technology company, developing a new product within an established organization, or approaching any creative endeavor. The book challenges conventional wisdom about competition, market dynamics, and business strategy, presenting a contrarian framework that has guided some of the most successful companies and investors in Silicon Valley and beyond. Point 1. The power of monopoly represents a fundamental departure from traditional business thinking, as Thiel argues that monopolies drive innovation and create lasting value while perfect competition destroys profits and stifles progress. The author explains that creative monopolies, which are companies that become so good at what they do that no other firm can offer a close substitute, are the engine of economic growth and technological advancement. Unlike the monopolies that economics textbooks warn against, creative monopolies benefit society by solving important problems in ways that were previously impossible or impractical. These companies earn substantial profits precisely because they provide unique value that cannot be found elsewhere, and these profits fund further innovation and development. Thiel demonstrates that companies like Google, Microsoft, and Apple became incredibly valuable not by competing in crowded markets, but by creating new categories where they could dominate completely. The author argues that entrepreneurs should actively seek to create monopolies by developing proprietary technology, achieving network effects, realizing economies of scale, or building strong brand loyalty that makes competition irrelevant. This perspective challenges the common advice to find your competitors and try to beat them, instead suggesting that the best businesses have no real competition because they do something completely different and valuable. Point 2. Proprietary technology serves as the most substantive advantage a company can have. And Thiel explains that breakthrough companies typically possess technology that is at least 10 times better than the closest existing alternative. This 10 times improvement threshold ensures that the advantage is significant, enough to overcome the switching costs and inertia that prevent customers from adopting new solutions. The author uses examples like PayPal's payment processing being 10 times faster and more convenient than mailing checks, and Google's search algorithm being dramatically more accurate than existing search engines when it launched. Proprietary technology creates a moat around the business that competitors cannot easily cross, especially when the technology becomes more valuable as the company grows and improves its systems. Thiel emphasizes that incremental improvements of 10 to 20% are not sufficient to build a lasting business advantage because they can be easily copied or improved upon by competitors. The most successful technology companies focus on breakthrough innovations that fundamentally change how problems are solved, rather than making existing solutions marginally better. This principle applies not only to software and internet companies, but to any business that can develop unique processes, systems, or approaches that deliver dramatically superior results. Point 3. Network effects become increasingly powerful as more people use a product or service, creating a virtuous cycle where the value of the product increases with each additional user. Thiel explains that businesses with strong network effects become more valuable to each user as the total number of users grows, making it extremely difficult for competitors to gain traction, even if they offer superior technology or features. Social networking platforms like Facebook demonstrate this principle clearly. as the platform becomes more valuable to each user when more of their friends and family are also using the service. The author notes that network effects must start with a small group of users who find the product valuable even when the network is tiny, then grow from there as the expanding network increases value for everyone. PayPal exemplified this approach by first focusing on eBay power sellers, who had a concentrated need for efficient payment processing, then expanding to other user groups as the network grew. Thiel warns that network effects are often difficult to achieve and may not apply to all business models. But when they do work, they create some of the most powerful competitive advantages possible. The key is designing products and services that become inherently more valuable as more people use them, rather than simply trying to achieve network effects through marketing or artificial incentives. Point 4. Economies of scale represent another powerful source of monopoly advantage, where the marginal cost of producing additional units decreases as production volume increases. Thiel explains that technology businesses often have particularly strong economies of scale, because software can be reproduced at essentially zero marginal cost, meaning that serving additional customers requires minimal additional investment. This creates a significant advantage over businesses with high marginal costs, as technology companies can improve their profit margins and competitive position simply by growing their customer base. The author demonstrates how companies like Microsoft achieved dominant positions partly because their software could be distributed to millions of customers without proportional increases in development or production costs. Service businesses typically have weaker economies of scale because serving additional customers often requires hiring additional people, limiting the scalability advantages. However, even service businesses can achieve economies of scale through automation, systematization, and technology that allows them to serve more customers with proportionally smaller increases in costs. Thiel emphasizes that economies of scale become self-reinforcing as larger companies can invest more heavily in research, development, marketing, and talent acquisition than smaller competitors, further increasing their advantages over time. Point 5. Branding represents the fourth element of monopoly power. But Thiel warns that brand alone cannot create a lasting monopoly without substantive underlying advantages in technology, network effects, or economies of scale. The author explains that strong brands can reinforce monopoly positions by creating customer loyalty and reducing the likelihood that customers will switch to competitors even when alternatives become available. Apple demonstrates successful branding that reinforces technological and design advantages, creating customer loyalty that goes beyond rational cost-benefit analysis. However, Thiel cautions against focusing primarily on branding without developing the underlying substance that makes the brand meaningful and defensible. Many companies have attempted to build strong brands through marketing and messaging without creating real value or competitive advantages, and these efforts typically fail when competitors offer superior products or services. The most successful brands emerge naturally from companies that consistently deliver exceptional value and experiences, rather than from marketing campaigns designed to create artificial differentiation. Thiel suggests that entrepreneurs focus first on creating real value and competitive advantages, then allow branding to develop organically as customers recognize and appreciate the unique benefits they receive. Point 6. The importance of starting small and dominating a specific market niche challenges the common entrepreneurial advice to think big and go after large markets immediately. Thiel argues that the most successful companies start by completely dominating a small market, then gradually expand into related and adjacent markets from a position of strength. This approach allows companies to establish monopoly positions in manageable market segments before facing the challenges of competing with established players in larger markets. The author uses Facebook as an example, showing how the company started by dominating the Harvard social networking market, then expanded to other Ivy League schools, then to all colleges, then to everyone, maintaining its dominant position throughout this gradual expansion. Amazon similarly started by dominating online book sales, before expanding into other product categories and eventually becoming the everything store. Thiel explains that starting with a small market allows entrepreneurs to understand customer needs deeply, refine their product or service based on concentrated feedback, and build the operational capabilities necessary for larger-scale success. This approach reduces risk by proving the business model in a controlled environment before attempting to scale. And it creates a foundation of success that makes expansion more likely to succeed. Point 7. The power of definite optimism separates successful entrepreneurs from those who hope for the best without taking specific action to create desired outcomes. Thiel distinguishes between definite and indefinite attitudes toward the future, and between optimistic and pessimistic worldviews, creating 4 possible combinations that produce very different approaches to business and life. Definite optimists believe the future will be better than the present and take specific actions to create that better future, while indefinite optimists believe the future will be better, but do not have specific plans for improvement. The author argues that definite optimism characterized the most successful periods of American economic growth and innovation, when entrepreneurs and business leaders had clear visions for specific improvements they wanted to create. Indefinite optimism, which Thiel suggests has become more common in recent decades, leads to a diversification approach where people hedge their bets, rather than making focused investments in specific visions of the future. This shift toward indefinite thinking has contributed to financial speculation, political gridlock, and educational systems that prepare students. Growth comes from action, not just information. Take one lesson from this book and start practicing it today. For more life-changing insights on personal development, make sure to subscribe and stay on this journey of self-improvement.